And here's our special guest, Gary McIntyre. Hello, Gary.
Hi, Vanelli. How are you?
I love that accent. Every time I'm gonna put that on my recording. Vanelli's not here right now. This is Buddy Gary. Call him back later. So, hey, so Gary, what do you have for us today?
What I'm going to look at today, if everyone can understand the accent, what I'm going to look at today is just the structure AI details and accent AI, just with a couple of images, just a couple of very quick edits, just to show how it can really emphasize what you're trying to do with your images.
Yep, and I love this because you're dealing really with the essential tools, and the essential tools are what us photographers rely on. And we've talked about this before. Are you a photographer, a graphic artist, or a retoucher? And you could be all three, but make sure whichever one you are in that moment. And with Luminar AI, it makes it so easy to be a great photographer with those essential tools. All right.
Yeah, definitely,
All
definitely.
right.
Yeah, and it makes it so easy as well.
All right. You got it. So you can share your screen.
I will do. And there we go. Can we see the screen?
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. Well,
Nice sunny day.
it is, yes. This is just down the coast from me. But what I was looking at with this image was just to bring out the details. As you can see, it's the last light of the day nearly, but I wanted to bring out the details. So it's just a single shot. And with like structure AI, accent AI, and the details, I actually have templates set up here over in my templates with the new Luminar AI Update 2. I've actually set this up so that I can save it. But what I'm going to do for this is just show you it working here. And if I can move that down slightly there, sorry, I'll just do that. Up the top there keeps going in there. So if I go into accent AI, what I can do, I'm not going to use the sky enhancer for this. I'm just going to leave that to the very end. So I'm just going to push that ever so slightly. And just you can see the differences straight away that that brings to the image. Just if I do a quick before and after. And most of the details I'm trying to enhance are down in the foreground elements and up there. So I'm just going to push that just a tad more just to bring that up. Then for me, one thing that I really like as well with this is the structure AI, and this can be used both ways. That's what I really like about it as well. And I'll quickly show that in the second image too. What I'm going to do is I'm going to push that slightly, and I'm going to use the edits here for the details edit. So that again, if we do that, I love this before and after slider. If we use that, we can see the differences that that's made already. But with this, with the masking, what I really like, as Darlene mentioned as well, is the fact that you can copy any masks that you paint in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the opacity at 100 just for the purposes of this. And I'm just going to paint in very, very quickly around here in any details that I want. Just there, just make the image pop just a tiny bit more. I'll take the brush size down to there and do that, and then bring it back down again. And just for this, just for the lighthouse, I won't take my time with this, I'll just do that. But as I say, what I love about this is the fact that I can now copy this. And for me, go into the details and then decide how much I want to use, like small details, medium details, or the large details. And for this one image here in particular is mainly the small details. And you can just see how much, again, if I zoom in there, how much that has popped. Just be using a few sliders. And then I'll just push the medium details slightly. Large details, I'm not going to bother with too much because there's quite a bit going on over here. And for this image, I actually left the people in this image here just to see the scale of the entire place. But you can see the details and how just these three sliders have made such a difference to the image. And for this, what I'm going to do is just go in here into the three dots and paste. So just to note, so that I know what I've just pasted in as well, I can show the mask. So that's the mask from the first Structure AI edit. And that's what I love about it, as you mentioned, the fact that you can be a graphic artist, a photographer, everything all at once, just what you can do with this. I'm also, as you know, a Photoshop user as well, and Lightroom as well, but to do this in Photoshop would take a lot longer. And this is what I love about Luminar for this. I can get into an edit and get in really, really quickly, get to the point that I really want, and then take it from there. And I really enjoy that with it.
Well, that's great. Now, yeah, you know, it's interesting. Along with yourself, several presenters today love showing the mask and then copying and pasting the mask onto different tools, saving a lot of time. So that worked out really good. And it's interesting because I do have the Windows Surface. What is this? The workstation. Since Luminar, I've rarely had to use my mask because a lot of the stuff I try to do, I try to stay away from the masking as much as possible. But if it's a special piece or an artwork that I'm using, then I'll spend 30 to 40 minutes on it.
Yeah.
Do you remember in the old days, you spend a week or 2 weeks, you know, and now to say you're spending 30 minutes, it's like, oh my God, you spend 30 minutes on that?
Yeah. I'll be honest, it is such a time saver. And it means as well, from the point of view that you can go into templates and actually, let's save this here as a template, or the edits that you would normally make. My templates are in here. I have clean and crisp, or my templates, if I get back there, and I've got favorites as well, Queen Light, Forest Stream. I love the fact that you can go in and just use the ones that you would normally do. But this one here, for example, this Clean and Crisp, that's set up just with Accent AI, Structure AI, and details. So that once I apply that, I can go in and just mask the areas that I want those three bits to be applied to.
Oh wow! And then you start from there. That's a really smart idea.
It really helps, and if time allowing, yep, I'll show you in the second image that actually working, how I actually use it. If I jump to this image here, so this is a recent one. We don't normally get too much fog where I stay, so as soon as this happened, I dived out to get it. But this one here, this is me applying the template, and this template has everything that I mentioned there applied to it and saved. But what I can also do with this, if I just apply that, you should be able to see the difference there, and I'll just do the slider difference. So you can see the difference that is made, and although that would be applied to the entire image, what I can do as well is I can go into edit, and because this is a misty scene or a foggy scene, I can go into edit, and I can also go into the local masking. So for example, that has been masked there, and it's a foggy scene, so it's got a bit of contrast with everything that's happening there. So what I would normally do for scenes like this, now that I've managed to be able to capture one, is add a basic in the local masking. But this time, go in and turn the structure down and pull that back. I'm watching this area here in the background mainly. So although it's affecting the entire image, I'm watching this area here just in the trees because it is in the distance. And then I would go in with the mask and I'll just increase that there, the radius up just for this. And then I'll go in and soften this again. So that you're using, I noticed Rich was talking about that as well, you're using both the structure to emphasize and also to decrease what you're doing. So I can go in there and paint that in there. I'll just do this very quickly. And in there, and through the trees, because we've got enough contrast there, what I can do is I can drop the opacity right down and just lightly paint in there. There we go, it's showing up now. So we can lightly paint.
Yeah. And isn't it neat? We don't have to start in any set order,
No.
right? Because like, in the old traditional way of photo editing, ironically, we as creators are the ones who love to go out of the box, but traditional photo editing keeps you in a box, and you have to follow set orders. And here I just noticed you took a different approach, and you didn't have to start, in one section. So I thought that was really neat. Um, 'Cause how many times have you done a tutorial in Photoshop the old days, a 40-step tutorial, and you realized, oh shoot, back in step number 7, you didn't do this, and you had to start all over again. So
Yes.
that is great.
Yeah, and it's the fact that, because, as you say, you don't have to follow any order, you can apply these at any point. You get your base, because that allows you to do everything. But when you're editing, you'll have a kind of normal workflow that you use. And
Exactly.
this allows you to jump out of it and jump back into it and use it to plug in the full
And
software.
speaking of that, Jim asked, can we stack templates? And the answer to that is no. So in other words, and keep in mind, once you create a template, you apply a template, or better yet, you, like right now, if Gary were to add a template to what he just edited, everything will revert back to 0, and the template will be taking everything to 0, and the template settings are the only settings. And at first,
Manelli, if somebody wants to combine 2 templates, the best workflow for that is develop the first image, then you could export the image and bring it back in. And if you want to be able to use those together, if you load that second image with the texture overlay, you could load that on top, much like a layer, which would then give you the ability to blend the 2 together. But you could develop an image, export it, put it in the same folder, Luminar automatically adds it back to your library. So that's just a multi-pass workflow. Lightroom would be the same way. So because we're a parametric image editor, we apply the tools only one time. And the reason for that is that everything's non-destructive. So you can't run a filter 3 times. But this gives you that ability that everything is live and can be edited or adjusted at any time. So that's why we do it that way. And we got rid of adjustment layers and things like that because it sometimes rendered the filters in the wrong order and produced really long export times and lots of noise or artifacts. So we went with this non-destructive approach, and that's why now the clone tool is non-destructive, the erase tool is non-destructive. All of those things are live effects that you didn't have before, but because we embraced an entirely non-destructive engine under the hood with Luminar AI. Sorry, was that a mic drop moment for you there, V?
Yeah, okay, Gary, right when we think we know a lot about it, Rich pops in.
Just so we're clear, that's my job. Not to interrupt you, just to know the hard answers.
So there's your answer. What was it, Jim? You're welcome. So, all right. So, Gary, are you applying atmospheric fog to this?
No, this is the actual scene. This is a very fortunate moment for me because we don't get much fog. So this is actually the entire scene.
Wait, Scotland? You don't get that much fog in Scotland?
Where I stay, you don't know. I'm right on the coast, so there's hardly ever any fog.
Well, that's awesome. Well, what else do you have for us?
It was actually when you were talking about back in here, jump into this one as well, for the local masking with this, from the point of view that once you had everything edited to the way you wanted it, what you could do is you could go into the local masking, and again, we have in here structure, saturation, everything that everybody's used before and that they're playing with. But what you can also play around with and build these up is the fact of the warmth and the exposure. So you can actually keep working in top. I think it's up to 10 times, I think that Richard said before. So you can actually build upon these all the time. So if that there looks too flat, I can then start to go in and, for example, I can decrease the shadows just in there and apply it via a mask. I'm going to keep the opacity there just for the purposes of this and take the radius down. So I'm only going to apply it into certain areas. I would take my time if it was a normal edit, but I'm only going to apply that into certain areas. So again, what that's done, it's not dodging and burning per se, but it's another way to get what the effect basically that you're after, because a lot of dodging and burning you spend so much time doing, and it's really good to do. I find it very therapeutic, but I can go up here and I can just increase the brush size. I'll watch my time as well and go in there. So I can decrease that again. And you can see it's just subtle, the changes of it, because this image, the main thing about this image is the lead through.
As a portrait photographer, burning in highlights, shadows, and a hair is something I'm used to, and I'm watching you do this to a landscape. It's the same. It's so cool how you were directing the viewer's eye, with light.
That's the one thing, as you know, I teach at college as well, and that's the one thing that we do teach them, whether they're landscape, portrait, or whatever type of photographer they are. It's the light that controls the eye, as well as composition, but it's the light. We're always drawn natively to the lightest part of an image. So by doing this, and I'll just very quickly go into one more, so you can go up 10 times with this. I can then go in and just bring back some highlights or even deepen the shadows even further. As you see, that goes in even further, which is giving us a more reaction in here. And again, just choose the areas that I want the contrast to appear in. I'm doing this very quick, but hopefully you get the idea with that.
Exactly. It looks really good. So what other projects do you have you're working on?
At the moment, I've actually just started another job as well. I'm actually writing for F-stoppers now. So that's taken up a bit of time. I've got a lot of, well, as you know, I do the YouTube stuff. I really enjoy teaching, so I do the YouTube work as well. And I'm waiting for, over here, we're in a closed district, so we can't travel that far. So I'm waiting for the boundaries to open when it's safer to open, so that I can go north and shoot an entire series of images. I've got a plan of images that I want to do that I've never shot before, just to push what I'm actually doing as well.
Oh, wow.
Interesting, exciting stuff for me.
Hey, do you want to stop sharing your screen?
Oh, yep.
Well, that's really great, Gary. So now you were teaching class before quarantine. Were you teaching classes in Scotland or all over?
I do. I teach at a local college. I teach 4 days now. I dropped a day so that I could spend more time doing photography. So I actually dropped a day at college. I teach 4 days at college, and then during most of the year, I do workshops in the Glencoe region of Scotland, which is just a lovely area. I absolutely love it there. So I teach workshops there as well, 1-day workshops.
Oh, great. Now, what have you been noticing? Like back when we came up through Photoshop, before Lightroom was invented, you had Photoshop without layers. Trying to understand Photoshop, a complicated program for graphic artists, and then trying to understand photography. Oh my God, that's why my hair, just so you know, is like this. I had a full head of hair all the way down. But nowadays, I just feel people gravitating towards photography are at the perfect time, because now they can focus on their photography, and oh yeah, here's Luminar to help you fine tune your images, not totally replacing them, not making them look totally fake, just enhancing them, using it as your digital darkroom. And then when they're ready to take it to the next step, then they can make movie posters and they can make other things from there. But they have the ability to learn their art one at a time. So, are you noticing that with your students?
the students are, yes, they're, as you say, they're spending more time out shooting, not just now, but they are spending more time shooting. And then, although they're shooting, we like to teach them from the point of view that everything should be captured in camera as best you can, and then tweak it at the end. And so that way they're focusing on, forgive the pun, but they're focusing on the task in hand, and they're not thinking, right, okay, I can do this at the end to make this better. Make this as good as you can just now, and this will just enhance it. So, yeah.
Now the downfall with Luminar on that part of it, I used to use Lightroom as a punishment. If somebody photographed, let's say 40 shots, and it's too dark, they had to do they had to go and hand fixed every single one of those images, and that taught them, don't ever make that mistake again. Here's the proper lighting. I tried that with an intern when Luminar came out. They just zip. All right. So it was kind of neat. They just said, "Oh, I should have put a reflector here. My bad. Bip. Done." So, but it is a good learning tool too, because then we can show, hey, if you were to relight this scene,
yes,
here are some things you can do. So, but that's great, Gary. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. Thank you.
Now, where can we find more about you?
Most of my time's focusing either Instagram at Gary McIntyre Photographer, or YouTube, again, Gary McIntyre Photographer, or I've got a website, which again is Gary McIntyre Photographer. So I just try and keep it, because there's another Gary McIntyre, but he's a dancer and I can't dance. So
I'm sorry. I just saw Lord of the Rings.